So I'll start off by reading Leviticus 23, Leviticus 23, 9 to 16. Adonai said to Moshe, "Tell the people of Israel, after you enter the land I am giving you, and the harvest its ripe crops, you are to bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the Kohen. He is to wave the sheaf before Adonai, so that you will be accepted. The Kohen is to wave it on the day after the Shabbat. On the day that you wave the sheaf, you are to offer a male lamb without defect in its first year as a burnt offering for Adonai. Its grain offering is to be 1 gallon of fine flour mixed with olive oil, an offering made by fire to Adonai as a fragrant aroma. Its drinks offering to be of wine, 1 quart. You are not to eat bread, dried grain, or fresh grain until the day you bring offering for your God. This is a permanent regulation through all your generations, no matter where you live. From the day after the day of rest, that is, from the day you bring the sheaf for waving, you are to count 7 full weeks. For the day after the 7th week, you are to count 50 days, and then you are to present a new grain offering to Adonai." So that's the scriptural context for it. I'm going to start off by talking about the temple context, and then I'll talk about a more modern day context as well. So Omer means sheaf, which is pretty obvious, and it's the annual first fruit wave offering to Adonai of the crop of the barley harvest. The first sheaf of the harvest is waved in multiple directions, so all directions. That's because God is everywhere. This is to symbolize that the fruit of the ground belongs to Adonai, offering the first fruits and to give thanks for the harvest. Along with the wave offering, a sacrifice of a male lamb, grain offering, and drink offering is also given with the wave offering. So once the actual waving of the Omer is done, then there's a full 49, 50-day festival. So it's a long one, and it stretches across a few other festivals. So it's like a multi-festival occasion. And this is the part that the actual counting of the Omer takes place. So for each night, so I believe it's technically 49 because you start on the second day. So count 49 days. From the starting Sabbath to Shavuot, each household counts the days that pass. I'll go in a little bit detail later about how that actually looks like in a practical sense. But the day that people start on is something that's up to a bit of contention in Judaism. Not so much now as it was in Yeshua's time, but still now there's a bit of debate. So Rabbinic Judaism and the sects that fall under that banner. So that's pretty much all the standard, so Orthodox, Chabad, all the like really popular ones at the moment. They believe that the festival starts on the 16th of Nisan, which would be the 9th of April. 9th of April? Yeah, 9th of April, sorry. In our Western calendar.
15th.
Thursday, I believe.
The night of the 9th of April, isn't it?
Yeah, the night. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely. Night of the 9th of April.
Yeah.
And the Rabbinic Judaism includes the teaching... Oh, sorry. Yeah, so it's 9th of April. So just to give a bit more background about what Rabbinic Judaism is versus non-Rabbinic. Rabbinic Judaism includes the oral Torah, the sages, all the extra written books along with the Torah. And Messianic Judaism is considered a Rabbinic Judaism, so because Yeshua is our Messiah, so we take on that tradition of starting the counting on the 16th of Nisan, as our Rabbi Yeshua would have done. Now, the non-rabbinic sects of Judaism have a different opinion. So these are sects like the Karaite Jews and the Samaritans in Israel. They're the two big ones at the moment, but one that would have been around in Yeshua's time would have been the Sadducees. So they would have also been non-rabbinic. They start the festival on the day after the weekly Passover, during the festival on unleavened bread. The reason for this is a bit of confusion about what the passage means in Leviticus when it talks about starting the day after the Sabbath. So Sabbath technically just means a holy day of rest. So you have a Sabbath as in like the weekly Sabbath, or you can have a Sabbath as in a designated holiday for God. The Rabbinic Jews take that as Pesach. The non-Rabbinic Jews take that as the weekly Sabbath, so the regular Sabbath. So that's why there's a bit of a mismatch of which day to follow. But again, as we have a Messianic rabbi who follows our Rabbi Yeshua, we start on the 16th of Nisan. So that's just about like the context and what it looked like at the time. This is more about the spiritual application. So the more mystic side of it and what it means for our spiritual lives. So the days between the offering of the Omer and the final days of the count are often used as a period of time for personal reflection, refining of character, and spiritual cleansing. The reason for this period of time being used for refining of character is that it parallels the journey of the nation of Israel from sinful Egypt to the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. So it's 49, 50 days that took them to go there, to go to that spot. It sort of parallels that, and it runs from Pesach until Shavuot. The nation of Israel went through a significant spiritual transformation from Pesach to Mount Sinai, as they left slaves living in sin, like living as Egyptians in sinful life. And by the time they reached Mount Sinai, were a righteous nation willing to accept God's Torah and become a nation of priests. Obviously, they fell short throughout the whole period of time in the desert, plus more. So I'm not saying that they were there yet, but the journey of purification started when they left Egypt. And you could see the progress by Mount Sinai. So the counting of the Omer is not just about spiritual purification, but it's also a celebration of the Torah itself. So it's a celebration of the giving of the Torah. And it's basically counting up to Shavuot. So it's like a Jewish Advent calendar of types. So you count each day getting closer to Shavuot, because Shavuot is considered to be the anniversary of Mount Sinai and the giving of the Torah. So it's an anticipation for what God has given, what we are going to celebrate, and a remembrance of all that God has given us through his Torah. That's the spiritual application, and this is more of like the practical application. So what does it look like? How do we do it? So it starts on the second night of Passover, and every night it's about 30 minutes after sunset. Like that's traditionally when it's done, but with modern lives, it's whenever you can do it, it's acceptable. Except there is a parameter where you can do it. So if you forget to do it on the night, then you can do it in the morning. But then if you miss the blessing in the morning, then there's some rules that you have to follow sort of make up for that. So you count the day and then recite the blessing. And I believe Dad will send out a sheet with the blessings on it. Is that right?
Yes, we'll send all that out when we send out the pack with Pesach. So we'll either manually, physically bring it to you, or we'll send it by email as a PDF, and you can print it. Yep.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, the blessing, you'll have a copy of that. But you do the count first, and then recite the blessing. You do that for the first 7 days. You count as if today is day, sorry, let me just find it. Day is 1 day of the Omer, like that, or today is 2 days of the Omer, until you reach day 7. Then day 8, or the 8th day, you go. Today is 8th day, 1 week and 1 day of the Omer. So you count the days, and then you count the week plus the day. It's complicated, but it's basically to satisfy a debate with the rabbis whether God has asked us to count each individual day or to do one large count. So it's a technicality, but keeping with tradition, it's important to honor that.
Yeah, I think it's got to do with the weeks, whether we're supposed to be counting weeks or whether we're supposed to be counting days. And so it settles both debates, as you say. It counts the days and then you do the week as well. So, yeah.
Definitely. Now, as I mentioned before, if you miss a night of the counting and blessing, you can make up for it the morning after, and then you just continue going on each night after that. But if you miss the morning, the night and the morning, then you technically you can't continue with the blessings, just the counting, because then technically the blessings are in vain. So you can continue counting from that point on, but to do the blessing is not kosher. So you can listen to a friend do the blessing or someone else do the blessing, but you sort of just have to continue on with the counting.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's like you have to be engaged. You can't just give up and be like,
yeah, definitely.
I made it halfway out of Egypt. It's good.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, it's we're all or nothing sort of thing. Otherwise, it's pointless. That's the idea. That's basically all I have on it. It was just a really quick introduction. But if there's any questions or comments, happy to hear.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, I did want to, it seems to be a theme that with what Ryan spoke of and now the counting of the Omer, with regards to clothing yourselves in Messiah and the mindfulness and the practicality of mindfulness. So I was just looking at Leviticus, the 15th verse of 23. And the commentary here in that verse, and it's talking about counting yourself 7 weeks. It's that part of the scripture. But the commentary speaks of count for yourselves 7 weeks, Sephardim. Sephardim can also refer to brilliance and brightness. The message here is make yourself shine, refine your character so that it becomes radiant.
Yeah.
This is the Omer in a nutshell. So with what Ryan brought this morning and now this aspect of it, it's time to keep a journal. It's time to meditate, be introspective. How much of yourself really reflects Yeshua, our Rabbi, our Messiah? How much of myself do I need to polish and improve and reflect his goodness and his love and his fire through me to others? Yeah. So here they say, look, week 1, think of chesed, think of love. Week 2, consider discipline. Week 3, compassion. Week 4, determination. That's a big one. Week 5, humility, huge. Week 6, bonding. And week 7, dignity. So with the blessings I think that we hand out is also another opportunity for meditation on the scripture. How does my life reflect this? How am I still in bondage to Egypt? Where am I in the journey? And do I really want to have that promised land?
Yeah,
well said. Like, here's an example of my journal that I keep. And there's so many cool ways you could do this. It's just a regular journal, and I've used a thing called the bullet journal method, but that's by the by. But what you can do is you can draw like a mind map of attributes you wish to incorporate into your life, things that you don't want to do, a Bible verse to focus on. There's so many good ways. It's funny because in the secular world, they'd call this like, it's really popular in the secular world amongst men to be like, it sounds crass, but they're trying to improve themselves. No masturbation for 40 days. Try this challenge. It'll improve your life. You know, all these people doing these things. Don't do this for 40 days. Try this. You're thinking, this is what God has wanted us to do. It's just a part of our life. You know what I mean? Like this comes up every week and we have a new chance, not every week, every year to do that, you know? So, yeah.
There's actually a meditation that
What was the first one,
do.
Marie?
Oh, sorry.
What was the first one, Marie?
The first one was
Chesed.
Love.
Chesed.
Yeah. Sorry, you probably can't see Daniel, but Keith has got his hand
Was
up.
what? Sorry?
Oh, yeah.
The first one was what?
love.
Thank you, thank you.
Fire away.
Thanks, Ralph. I just wanted to mention that in this day and age, we don't have to do little journals that are so difficult. You can actually get an app called Omer Counter,
Yep.
and I'll bring it up for you on my screen, and then I'll hit the button and you can see what.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of apps that help you. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the technically non-challenged,
Yep.
And I'll just click.
it's a good option.
Anybody read those remind you that you have forgotten?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They nudge you along.
There's actually yes.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, and they also
There's actually dedicated
It makes life
meditation.
very, very much easier, and it also tells you if you've missed a day, and if you perhaps thought of that day the day before, you can then go back and correct it and say, yeah, I did think of that. And you can see all the days that you've missed and the days that you counted, and you'll get all your little blessings.
Oh, wow, that's cool. It's very useful. Yes. Yeah, there's actually dedicated meditations already that exist for Counting of the Omer.
True.
So things like Chabad.com and all that, they should have like the meditations that already exist. So if you want to use them as well as a guided meditation.
Yeah. There's a good one. I can't remember which one of the apps, but it actually each week it breaks it down into the same one as Marie's mentioned. So for 1 week it focuses on love, and the next week it does focus on those 7 attributes that Marie was talking about.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
that's probably the best one I would recommend to get. Yeah. Cool.
Those are good tips. Thank you.